Greetings and welcome to this next installment of Bible Topics that make you say, hmm. Now, remember last time we left off talking about what happened in the book of Judges. And a question I asked was, is it okay to cut up women? Sounds like a crazy question to ask, right? And now I have another crazy question to ask. Is it okay to rape women? No brainer, right? Of course, this shouldn't be okay to rape women. Let me share with you a story. Remember, I said Judges, we weren't through. There's more to that story. So we'll pick up at the end of chapter 19 where we left off, verse 30. Everyone who saw it said, nothing like this has ever happened or been seen since the day the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt to this day. Think it over, discuss it, and speak up. So for those of you who haven't watched the video before, watch the video before and it'll catch you up on where we are now. I don't have time to go back and do a recap. So they're upset about what happened with this woman and they want to know what happened, picking up in Judges chapter 20, verses 3 through 5. The Benjaminites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. The Israelites asked, tell us, how did this outrage occur? The Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, now he's a husband again. He's not the master. Because remember last time he went from husband to being master. So he's acting like he's so outraged. The Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, and Levites were a part of the priesthood that came from Aaron, answered, I went to Gibeah in Benjamin with my concubine to spend the night. Citizens of Gibeah ganged up on me and surrounded the house at night. They intended to kill me, but they raped my concubine and she died. You forgot to say that they wouldn't have raped her had you not given her to them. And the homeowner said, do with her what you like. And so they did. Verse 6, then I took my concubine and I cut her up in pieces and sent her throughout Israel's territory because they committed a horrible shame in Israel. And so did you. Look, all of you are Israelites. Give your judgment and verdict here and now. Then all the people stood united and said, none of us will go to his tent or return to his house, pretty much until we come up with a decision. So remember, he didn't want to stay in Jebus, which later became Jerusalem once David took it over, because it was not a godly place to be. But he went to a place that he thought was godly, the land of the Benjaminites. Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, was one of the 12 tribes of Judah. So picking up on 46, all the Benjaminites, so it was decided, you know what, we're going to kill those Benjaminites for what they did in raping that woman to death. We are going to avenge her. And this is how they decided to do it. They're angry, they're righteously indignant. All the Benjaminites who died that day were 25,000 armed men. All were warriors, but 600 men escaped into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon and stayed there for 4 months. Interesting, the concubine stayed with her father for 4 months after she cheated on her husband, and they stayed away for 4 months. I don't know what that has any significance. It just stood out for me just then. Verse 48, the men of Israel turned back against the other Benjaminites and killed them with their swords, the entire city, the animals and everything that remained. They also burned down all the cities that remained. So she got justice, right? They did all of this. You know, we are not going to stand for this. Judges chapter 21, picking up in verse 18. So after they did this, they killed all these people with the exception of 600 who escaped. We're like, oh, wait a minute. We're not going to have a tribe anymore because these men need a woman to marry. And we've all vowed that we're not going to give them any of our daughters. So how can we get around this so we don't totally wipe Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, off the face of the earth? They said, but we can't give them our daughters as wives, for the Israelites had sworn, anyone who gives a wife to a Benjaminite is cursed. They also said, look, there's an annual festival to the Lord in Shiloh, which is north of Bethel, east of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem and south of Lebanoah or Labona. Then they commanded the Benjaminites. So these 600, they came out of hiding. They said, look, we can't give you any of our daughters willingly because there's a curse upon us if we do, but go and hide in the vineyards. There's this festival to the Lord, holy time, and do this. Watch. And when you see the young women of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, each of you leave the vineyards and catch a wife. What? That's catch a wife. Catch a wife for yourself. Then the young women of Shiloh, excuse me, catch a wife for yourself from the young women of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. The Benjaminites did this and took the number of women they needed from the dancers they caught. They went back to their own inheritance, rebuilt their cities, and lived in them. These poor girls were set up to be kidnapped and taken against their will and made wives. And to me, that's rape. Is it to you? Is it okay to rape women? So twisted logic lens equals evil outcomes. So the tribes, they were justified. They were justified in their outrage against what was done to this woman. But I think more they were thinking about what was done to this man, that he uh, his honor needed to be avenged. But they didn't consult God until after they made a decision to do this. Oaths made in anger can lead to disastrous outcomes. Because I didn't read where they said, oh God, why did you allow this to happen or whatever, and so forth and so on. In the Bible, at Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 25 through 29, it goes into details how men are supposed to be handled if they rape a woman. On one hand, rapists were to be put to death, especially if they raped a woman who was engaged to be married to another man. There's a caveat though. If they raped a woman who was not engaged, he was forced to marry that woman and pay her father a bride price. That sounds crazy too, but back in the day, if a woman was no longer a virgin, nobody else wanted her. And so that was a way of punishing the rapist. I'd say punishing her too, but that's how she was taken care of, and he could never divorce her. God does not approve of the mistreatment of women. There's things that go on that he allows, but he does not condone. Ultimately, God will restore the righteous and punish the wicked, as Psalm 37:34 says. God loves us. He loves women, and he will punish their abusers. And so some of you may have been abused, and you're waiting for God to stand up and make you whole, and he will. And sadly, for some of us, we won't fully be whole until we're in heaven with God. So thank you for being with me in this installment of Bible Topics That Make You Say, but I'm not done yet. Come back next time and we're going to answer the questions, do women's lives matter? And I'm just now noticing I misspelled that, but you know what I mean. Do women's lives matter? I'll see you next time. Stay tuned.